Make your marks.
You're listening to the Pullbuoy podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the Pullbuoy podcast. Steve here, and like London buses, you wait ages for one and two come along at once. Katie is back with me again this week for another podcast. Katie, have you recovered from our last effort with Anne Harrod and ready to go again?
I never really recover when it's talking about breaststroke because I just don't know what's going on.
Well, there we go. Well, we might talk about the breaststroke today with our guest on this episode. Is a swimmer who had a very successful 2024. He was the Pullbuoy Male Swimmer of the Year for 2024. Duncan Scott, thank you very much for joining us and welcome to the show.
Thank you. You didn't send them talking about breaststroke, so I hope there's not too much about that. That's for sure. But no, thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure. It's our pleasure. Obviously, we're in the early throes of 2025, a bit of distance on last season. With a bit of reflection, how do you feel about 2024 and how it went for you?
Yeah, another Olympic year passed. I think on reflection, because it's always, I think your perspective changes on things as time goes on, your initial emotion and then I guess now as well, several months on. I think in the whole it was a really good year for myself, especially given where I was the year prior in 2023. I think, I was struggling with illness a lot that season, and I was, probably, I know I'd like to consider myself, I've had really good consistency in my career, and that year I just wasn't quite able to get to the standard that I usually set, and I was really happy and proud that I was able to get back to that last year and continue it on as well and finish in a really positive manner with the World Cups as well. So, I think in total delighted, obviously with a couple of highs in the moments as well, the Olympic Games and others. So, I'm really, really delighted with last year and how it went.
Well, if we jump back to the start of last year, I mean, you mentioned there that you came off a year where maybe you hadn't been as consistent or performed as well as you might have liked to. But, it's easy to forget that we had an extra World Championships shoehorned in at the start of last year. Did that turn out to be a benefit if you were coming off a year where you weren't happy, as having that chance to go and do some international racing and get some racing under the belt?
Yeah, it was normal, to be honest, yeah. This is no disrespect to people that swam there. I mean, it's just one that I wasn't, obviously I think a lot of us went there with an opportunity to race, as you say, but not in the idea to fully focus on it. And it's, to be honest, it's a competition I totally forgot even happened last year. But looking back, I think it was a great prep meet for me. I got to race lots and frequently as well in high level competition. Got to race majority of the boys in the 2IM that I raced fast forward to the Olympics, and similar to the 2 free 4x2 as well. So it was a great kind of fresh rehearsal for what was to come later in the year, which for back-to-backs, recovery strategies, sleep, everything like that, it was a nice little trial run.
And then I guess looking on to trials, Matt said the 200 was more stressful than the World Championships at trials. Did you have a similar experience there, just with it being so competitive?
Yeah, that's tough. 2020. Oh, I didn't get a 200 free in 2023, so I don't know. No, I'm joking. I think that's a common thing. I think a lot of people are in a similar boat when it comes to trials. I guess when you're an international scene, it's almost like people are just like let loose, go out and race, enjoy yourself, and have a couple of little things that you can focus on. But I guess when it's either an Olympic Games, World Champs, or whatever, and you're at a trials, it's not only are you going for a time, but you're also having to fight against other teammates and people of the same nationality, and then there's also a time on the line as well that you've got to try and get to. I guess the 100 free and the 2 free at trials were both in a similar manner, where there was relay spots available, but also people were trying to get the individual ones as well. And I can see where he's coming from, for sure. And I guess that's a real positive for how he feels racing in the international scene as well, which is why he's probably got his performances that he has.
You've been to so many international meets now, and you're a real firm member of the team. Do you feel differently about an Olympic trials and an Olympic year than a World Championship year. Both, obviously huge prizes at the end, but I think to all of us who haven't been, you hear Olympics and it's kind of this hallowed word. But I don't know how it feels to somebody who's, been to you've now been to 3 Olympics and multiple World Championships. Does it all feel the same, or does it feel different?
I think yeah, it's very much athlete to athlete, how they prioritize each year. I would say I'm very much someone that prioritizes, how can I get it right in 4 years, even from now, sitting down with my new coach, Ben Higson, and being like, all right, what do we do this year that's going to make sure that, in three plus years, we're where we want to be. So 3 years now, I guess. And what can we do next year that's going to benefit further down the line as well? So, for me, the Olympic Games is really exciting. It's the pinnacle of our sport. When I'm racing in it, it's kind of like, you got that little bit more of an edge where it's like, I'm not going to get this opportunity again for quite a while. So, I think for me, I do love that. But yeah, it's so totally individual. You get people, World Championships is still, it's right up there. It's a real honour in the sport, something I've never achieved, an individual title, and so many others have, and the way they go about it year in and year out is quite exceptional. So yeah, I think it's probably a personal preference per athlete.
Well, you obviously were successful at those trials, and you got your places in the relays and the individuals indeed for Paris. But did you come away from there, confident that you were in the right place for Olympics at that stage of your preparation, with confidence that it was going to be good?
I think so. Yeah and no. I think yes in general. I think it's definitely. I wanted to go a little bit quicker in the 2IM, and then also I guess the 2-3. But as we touched on earlier, it can be kind of a little bit cagier trials, and it's maybe more of a sigh of relief rather than anything else at the end of the week. So to walk away with the 2 individuals and to be part of the relays, I was kind of like, well, we're still on track for what I wanted to try and achieve, and I thought it was kind of job done, and let's move on. But once you sit down and start looking at the little bits that you can improve on and what you want to try and work on. So I think flicking back my brain to it now, it was more relief rather than, I'm really happy with how I've swum. But looking back at plenty of the races, it was good to go 155 again, but I was like, I feel like I was in sort of PB form or in and around similar to what I went in Paris. Why was I not able to deliver that? So we were searching there. So I guess yes and no, but yeah, as I touched on, more of a relief.
And I guess, so starting off in Paris, and please do correct me if I am incorrectly characterising how you would see your swims, but my assumption is that the 4x1 and your individual 200, you would have liked to have finished higher. I still look at those results and are just blown away by what all you guys achieved, but are you someone who can park a disappointment and move on to the rest of the meet, or do you have to really kind of make an effort to put it behind you and look on to your next swim?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. They're two ones. I think everyone that was part of the 4x1, we all put our hands up. We just weren't on it that day, and that relay itself is one we've still. It's a bit of an unknown entity in the sense we've still not medalled at that individual. Well, as a relay on the world or Olympic stage yet, and we definitely have that ability. I know it's something that the boys are hungry to do. So. We need to start making that, constant practice like the 4x2 has. So, hopefully this year we can kind of get that over. So yeah, that and the 2-3 as well, pretty just on the wrong side of it. Just swam a little bit annoying. Back 350 is really good, just out a bit slow. But no, I think that's probably one of my strengths. In fairness, multiple occasions. I've had 10 plus races, whether that's be Commonwealth Games, Olympics, or whatever. And I know going in that not every race is going to be perfect. There's going to be so many scenarios where something might be great and others might be really poor. But it's probably about my old coach and now the head coach of British Swimming. Actually, you must speak well of him so that he picks me. Was we'd always chat about analyze and reflect on the week at the end. If something goes badly, park it. Same state. If you win and you race really well, then park it. I've got another opportunity the next morning or another event coming up. So try and not get too carried away with the highs or the lows. So I didn't have a great turn of freestyle, but swum down, come back. It's like, well, I've got a 4x2 tomorrow. This is a fantastic opportunity to do something that's never been done, and in some way take a little bit of frustration out in that race, which I think helped me in some way, and that gave me a good opportunity for the 2am coming up as well. So yeah, I think with that, being a multi-eventer, that probably does play into my advantage a little bit.
Obviously, you mentioned you had the relay as your third event. You got the morning off after the 2 free final. How important was it for you? I mean, you spoke about recovery and all those things that you've practiced lots of times before, but how important is it for you to get that morning off and just reset after your individual the night before, and therefore have Jack and Kieran able to come in and do the job in the morning? Yeah,
absolutely. You see it in America all the time. The Americans are, sometimes they're resting 3, 4 even, replacing all 4. And, some people that haven't raced for, 3-4 days, or that's only some of the meat come in, and they're just so fresh. And, I actually think we did a really good job of that Worlds 2023. Matt had 4x1, 3-2 freeze, and I think 3 100 freeze, and did the 4x2 heat and the 4x2 final. I was 4x1, nothing, 2 IMs, 4x2, and Dino was the same as Matt, and then myself. And we still all did the heat and then stepped up for the final. So yeah, it can be challenging, but I think we were really fortunate. I think it was the right call. Well, obviously looking back on it now, and when we've got additions that are able to go, in the past we've had, Jarv at the last Olympics won 45 point in the heat. Jack this point 45 point in the heat. I think he would have got this time. I think he would have gotten any other team in the world. Going 45.5. So yeah, that's. It's pretty important. I mean, and then you look back at what was required. America pushed us all the way in Paris as well. We didn't make it easy, especially for you guys watching at home, probably.
I mean, I wanted to talk about the USA because obviously, you've beaten them the last couple of times. You'd raced properly, but they had been, getting closer. But I think most people probably still had Britain as a favourite for that event. Does that weigh on you, as a quartet? Dealing with that pressure and knowing that they are kind of breathing down your neck a bit more than maybe they were 4 years ago or 3 years ago? Yeah,
it's tough. I mean, I think since I've been doing it, they were the dominating relay when I first started being a part of the relay. So I guess it's for me, it's still very much like we still got to go out and earn it every single time. If you take your foot off the gas a little bit, that America, we always joke about it, they've just got 146 boys lined up, right, and they could just pick them at will. It's probably 145s now this year that they'll just pick and place. So, we've always got to be on it. I mean, 2019, I think Australia won, and then, since then it's been a real battle between the two of us in America. So, in saying that, you've seen Worlds earlier in, February 24, there was a lot of fast times there. There was 3 143s in that field. Carson, Pan, and then the Korean lad as well. So, I think that event is moving on. I just think a few teams might have just not got it right on the day in Paris. But, the quality now in the men's 4x2 across the world is really starting to gain quite a lot of depth, which makes it even more vital to have these great heat swimmers, whichever team you're part of.
And when it came to strategy for that final swim, was it all about gold? Were you actually sort of consciously not chasing a particular time? I know that world record's out there and, it's sort of close, but when it came to that final, it's just all about getting your hand on the wall first.
Oh, I know. How many times? Come on. I know it's brutal. I think the 2 times I've gone last, so Paris and Tokyo, just touching, looking at it and being like, oh my days. Just give us a rerun. We'll do it now. So yeah, I think it's one, you don't want to talk about it. It's something I think it's in the back of our minds, and we have obviously been trying to do it. It's not like we're stepping up and not, but the priority is just simply winning. That's all that really matters. Same at a World Championships, an Olympic Games. The winning does matter. So I think that might change a few of the mindsets of the boys that are in the team in terms of how they might swim the race and how tactically they might then want to match up against who they're racing as well. So look, it's there. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. You know, it's still, there's been so much incredible history with that relay, regardless of if we get that world record or not. And, you know, it's been a privilege, you know, racing as part of that anyway. So, you know, we've been close so many times. But, yeah, no, it's been good.
Does it, I mean, anyone listening, I'm sure, unless we have some sneaky Olympic gold medal listeners that we don't know about, like anyone listening to this won't have won an Olympic gold and just will look at it as the most incredible sporting achievement anyone could have. Are you able to enjoy that, or do you have in the back of your mind that like, because of the world record, does that take any of the joy away?
Yeah, I mean, it is a good point. I mean, for that's probably all very individual as well in our 4x2. You know, some boys might be like, you know, I'm just all there for the win. You know, others, you know, probably do want that. You know, I'm a huge swimming fan, so I just want to see people go as quick as they can, as frequently as they can. So, yeah, and that's something that, you know, I think everyone would love to say that they've held one as well. But yeah, I think first and foremost for the relay, it's about getting the results focused as well. But yeah, it is an interesting question. I mean, I don't know. I can't answer it from that side of the story. So maybe I'll let you know after LA how it feels. But yeah, I don't know.
I mean, you say you like to see people going fast as they can all the time, but how much of a boost, you know, or was it a boost to see James going lifetime best in the heat and then you know, backing that up in the final after what, 8 years or since his previous best? That's got to have given you all a bit of a lift.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, no, it's been yeah, he's yeah, I mean, I could go on forever about Jim, but yeah, no, it was just really nice to see. We were unsure about the order in which we were going to go in the evening, and then I think after him leading off in that fashion in that way in the morning, you know, I think we were all just hoping he was able to dip under, get himself a 44, but you know, I think he went exactly the same time actually, morning and evening. So you know, that even doing that is unbelievable. I actually think he was one of the quickest splits in the whole field, and he was leading off as well. So yeah, I think, you know, that just kind of the 8 years as well. It kind of shows, it just kind of puts into perspective what he does as well, and the transition and changes that he's been willing to make over the last few years has come in. You know, it's quite brave to do that at the stage in his career of mid-20s and the history that he had behind him to be brave enough to do that and have a change of focus and emphasis with a different training pattern is really brave. And you know, it's come out really well. You know, he's swam incredible last year. So you know, it was a pleasure to watch and great to be a teammate in it as well.
Well, I'm interested in your psychology as an anchor leg swimmer. I mean, you mentioned there you swam last in Tokyo. You swam last again this time. Standing on the blocks, and you can see Matt in Tokyo. You see Tom, I think, this time coming towards you, and you probably know they're going to give you a lead. I mean, certainly in Tokyo. How does he feel in that moment? I mean, do you think about the race situation at all, or is it just right? This is me in my lane and concentrate on what I've got to do.
Yeah, so I think it's a little bit. So this time we were right next to America this time, and I think, you know, it's very much kind of like, so I know how I'm racing, so it's Kieran Smith, and I kind of know how he swims it, know what he's going to try and do, know what he wants me to do as well. So it's like, all right, let's go away from that. And I think, I guess you can be a little bit savvy with it, you know, moving across so you can't get on your wave. But I think we're probably a little bit too far ahead anyway to get on that. So you've probably just been on my leg kick. But I mean, with the 4x2 that I've been anchoring, it's more just it's been a bit of a privilege, to be honest. I don't have to do too much. Been a little bit of clear water. So. But I mean, even in that, you know, you've got to kind of remove hope, really, without sounding too harsh. You've got to remove hope from who you're swimming with. You know, you kind of want to put it out of their thought process. So, you know, halfway down the second 50, I might be like, right, this is where I'm going to push it. So it gets to 125, and I'm like, right, well, he's probably now going to be like, well, I'm in a battle for second. Or, you know, it's totally down to the situation you're in. You know, Jimmy Guy, 2015, or 2017 as well. You could be in a race and it's like, right, I'm going to have to take this out, or give myself an opportunity, just see what I can do. So it's really positional based, but I've been lucky enough that pretty much been doing a lap of honour at the end, which has been quite nice.
I mean, I was going to say, was there a point where in that anchor leg in Paris that you've won and it's just enjoyable from that point on, or are you always worried that someone's going to pull something out from somewhere?
I know when. I'm not going to say I know when I thought we'd won, because I'd like to think I'm pretty confident in my own ability, but at the same time, it's like you still need to deliver and do what you need to do, and there's as well, there's respect of how fast some of the other boys have been in that relay. There's a reason why their team has put them on their anchor, because they've got that belief of, if we need something here, you can go out there and deliver it. And to be fair to Kieran Smith, he always does for America. I absolutely love getting to know him at the World Cup. So we got on so well and raced. We actually raced every single event, every single meet, which was a little bit annoying for both of us. But he's stepped up time and time again for America. So you could argue it was never out of shot, but. I think with the way that I knew that I was capable of swimming in that event and the way that I wanted to swim as well, a little bit of anger from the night before, I think, I was pretty confident on the block.
Well, I mean, you didn't want to say it, but I think Katie and I would probably agree that we thought, that Britain was going to win when you were given the lead, but there we go. So
we could probably trace it back through our mad texts during that event, during that the exact point where we thought you were going to win. How did their gold this time round compare? Does it feel totally different? Are you used to it? Used to the gold medals?
No. I think to be fair, I think everyone they all loved it. So like the 4x2 boys, I think all of our family were there. Each of our respective parents, brothers, sisters, whatever, were all at the. We're all in the stadium that night, which I think was really special. Given the scenario that was in Tokyo, where there was just sort of other athletes in the stands, so going around just waving at other swimmers. Whereas this time, being able to soak it up and see my mum and dad in the crowd and the whole Dino entourage and Jim's family, Matt's family. So yeah, no, it was lovely.
Okay, so you've obviously done as a quartet what you set out to do in Paris, but you've got to come back now and swim your 200 IM, and we've spoken about compartmentalising and just getting on with it. But how do you feel about the outcome of that race? Obviously, you were racing another generational swimmer in the form of Leon Marchand. So how do you feel about the outcome of that race in that context?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got a day off after the 4x2, which I didn't get in Tokyo because of the way that it was flipped with morning and evenings. So I'm just resting up that day, just nice and easy. And that's the day that Leon does his double. And I was like watching, what am I watching here? Swimming over Milak, one of the greatest or one of the best butterfly swimmers of all time, just swimming over him. And the two breasts, it's just unbelievable. And then I'm like, oh, here we go, 2 AM time. Maybe he was going to be a little bit tired, but no. I think I was really happy with that event. That was my 10th race, that 2 AM final. Marginally off my best time from the last Olympics in the Tokyo final. And the way that structured the race, I think a little bit frustrating looking back. I was at 5:0, which was probably a little bit too slow. I was turned 8th. But I think that middle 100 was great, and from a personal point of view, it was just what I wanted to do. And I think flicking back to the year previously, I wanted to try and be next to Leon, just to have a feeling of what it's like to be next to him in 2023. What's it like to race? What's it like to be next to his underwaters, or how he does his breast to free turn or whatever. So having that experience from the year before and being next to him in Paris was, I think, really helpful. And his middle 100 was ridiculous, 28 point with a 32 as well, and just blew everyone away there. So I think from a personal point of view, I'm really happy with it. I'm kind of delusional in the sense that every time I race him, I'm like, I back myself. I got this. And then he'll go out and be like, no, you don't. And then the next time we'll get in the block, I'll be like, I think I can beat him. Which I think is maybe, a little bit dumb on my part, but at the same time, it's like, why not? But yeah, did I have a 54-0 in me? Probably not that day, but maybe could have had a 54 high, if I put it all together correctly. And, I guess that's what I need to strive to do for the next few years anyway.
And in terms of being part of a race like that, which must have just been completely wild with the reception that he was getting every time he came out, and I guess if you contrast that to the sort of atmosphere that you were having to, experience in Tokyo, is that something that you will always remember in terms of, the crowd noise and being part of something that was so huge?
Yeah, I think so. I raced, I think 2017 Worlds in Budapest. The noise and the atmosphere and the environment there was unbelievable. That was a really good experience for me. Even Rio the year before, 16 was great. And, I've raced in some phenomenal atmospheres before, but yeah, I would say that given how well he was doing, and I think the men's 53, was a few events before me. So Manadu did all the sort of hyping up the crowd and giving it big ones, and then pulled off a medal, and everyone was going nuts. And so yeah, this was for Leon's last individual medal. So yeah, it was a pretty, and I think pretty much everyone that was trying to get into the final got into the final. It was a pretty stacked, lineup as well. So yeah, it was it was loud, but I think I kind of love that. It's kind of why you do it. To race in those atmospheres and those environments. It's an absolute privilege, and especially what he did in front of a home crowd as well. It's just it honestly unbelievable to watch. Well,
it was. Even watching on the TV, it was incredible to see the atmosphere. And his ability to manage that and just deliver is incredible. But you picked up your silver medal there, but we saw you again. That would have been the end of your programming, possibly. But we saw you again in the medley relays, swimming the fly. Was that something that had been maybe on the cards heading to Paris, or did it just come up that week?
No, not at all. I think I heard like murmurs that, Steve kind of mentioned. It was like, it's an outshot possibility, just in case you don't, like, we're not going to speak about it until after the 2am, but he's like, no idea what these other boys are going to go, but, I'll just need to see what they say in the meetings. So it's nothing that I trained for or looked to swim, or I didn't try and, displace anyone from those opportunities. So, I was kind of exhausted, and I was like, oh, here we go. I think the boys were chatting about, there was a few people that went and watched the golf, and they're like, oh, we've got tickets. Do you want a ticket? I was like, I wouldn't mind watching the golf. And then, we'll try you in the mixed relay. I was like, all right, sweet. All right, we'll put you in the men's medleys. All right, sweet. I joked after. I was like, it's tough enough racing those guys when you do your best events. Never mind when you do an event you don't do often. Like, it's so hard. So yeah, it's difficult going into a relay, because you obviously don't want to let the team down, and you want to put the team in a great opportunity and give them a chance to do it. And we had Matt on the anchor that had a pretty good week, and we had a really strong lead off as well, and I just couldn't really put it together on my part. But I think it was quite pretty nice to be a part of that relay. Regardless, it's always, you always got to put your hand up for an opportunity anyway.
Well, I think that is fair enough, all things considered. Let's move on to the rest of the year. Did you have much of a break after Paris? Obviously, you went off on the World Cup tour a bit later in the year, but did you keep training on, or did you actually have a step out of the water for a period?
Yeah, I don't actually know. I think I was maybe 3 weeks fully out of the water, and then I maybe did 3 weeks of singles, or maybe more, 4 weeks of singles maybe, and then kind of panic trained and tried to ramp it up a little bit before the World Cups. Sat down with Brad, who was is the coach at Stirling, and I sat down with him, and we kind of discussed a rough plan going into the World Cups, and texting Steve a little bit about what we should try and do, and yeah, we just went a little bit more down the intensity route about what I should do before we go out. But yeah, managed to have quite a nice little break after Paris, and kind of got back into the swing of things, and then went out to the World Cup. So yeah.
Had it always been the plan to do that, or was that just actually I feel pretty good, no, let's do it? Or had you set your year out to go and do those meets beforehand?
Yeah, no, I'd set my year out to do that, and then off the back of it, just kind of go on holiday after that, so that it's not something I never feel like I never really feel like I finish a season and I'm like exhausted and I need to do loads and have a massive break and all this, and I absolutely love racing and the opportunity to race. I just I'll chuck my hand up at it at any moment, and that's why I absolutely loved either the World Cups or ISL in the past or anything like that. But this year, I think chatting with a lot of the people that I really value their opinion of my career, and speaking to them closely, I think a lot of advice of taking a longer break. I think it might not only be beneficial for the short term, but the long term of either going for LA and commies and way beyond LA as well. So yeah, I think that was the correct thing to do. Obviously starting back now, it's it's tough. It does ground you, but yeah, it's been a real pleasure getting back into it. That's for sure.
You mentioned the ISL. I loved it as a spectator. Is it something that you miss, or sort of on reflection in terms of managing your year and stuff, are you all right without it?
Oh, I loved it. Yeah, and I think, to be honest, I don't know how some people might take this, but I think it was really good for the sport as well. I think the sport of swimming was really good for it really needs a kind of like league system of some regard. To kind of mix up the general. All right, we've got one competition in July. We've got some sort of competition in December. We've got another competition in July. I think some sort of, either a league or whatever it may be. The World Cups I thought worked out really well this year, and fair play to World Aquatics. I think it's the first time I've really fully engaged in them, and I absolutely loved it. Similar sort of theme, but that league system gave for an opportunity to be on a team with other nationalities, racing with Aussies, Americans, and all sorts. So yeah, no, I think loads of athletes loved it, but it stopped for a reason, which many athletes weren't too happy about.
Campaign to bring it back starts now.
I think a few people have a few words to say about that.
Well, I mean, it had its issues, shall we say, but we loved watching it. So hopefully something similar might come back at some point in the future. I mean, you did go to those World Cups, 3 British records, short course. I mean, were you expecting to be as quick as that?
Oh, no chance at all. The first one in Shanghai, 4:3, and I was like, I kind of just entered it because I was like, I think it'll be. I was looking at the sort of the way all the points were done, and it kind of was done with FINA points and stuff. And I was like, depending on who's going, I was like, I might do it to try and score highly on day one, and then pick my events off the back. But I didn't realize everyone was wanting to do the 100 IM. So after the first one, I was like, I'm going to have to keep doing 4:3. And actually, it turns out, I can swim a 4:3 short course. All right. So yeah, no, I really didn't expect to be in that sort of shape. And I think the racing at each meet, I think, helped me for the following one again. Either just the experience and getting the know-how of doing it all, but then also the intensity and the good hits from that as well, paired with slightly less volume and lower intensity off the back of it as well.
Well, you had your break after that World Cup series, and you've just said that you're back at Stirling, getting back in now. Obviously, all changed there. You've said it a few times with Steve Tigg moving up to be the Aquatics GB head coach, Ben Higson coming back from Australia. Now, you've swum with Ben in the past when he was at Stirling before, so you kind of know what you're expecting to get from him. Do you think there'll be much change in what you do?
Yeah, well, I've known Ben for a long time. So when I first came to Stirling in 2015, he was the head coach. He coached, the other side, the lanes 4-6, and I was 1-3 with Steve. And he was on the Olympic team in 2016, and I was in his squad for that. And I think Stirling had maybe 5 or 6 athletes on the team there. So yeah, really good relationship with Ben, and I absolutely loved it. I think obviously a little bit apprehensive, with being coached by Steve for so long and having such a good relationship with him. And, I've got so much credit to say to him and everything that he's done for my career, and the way that he's kind of planned things and everything like that is unbelievable. So, I was kind of a little bit like, I don't quite know how this is going to go. But, every conversation I've had with Ben has been unbelievable. And he's kind of refilled me with so much energy and excitement as well for the future. So I think there'll be a lot of similarities, the way that they go about it, the kind of the same training philosophies as well. But, they're also very different as well, which I think is a good thing as well.
And is the change, like, did you know that there was going to be a change, that Steve might move on and do something else at the end of the 2024 season, or was it a bit of a shock for you? A difficult question. You don't have to answer if that's tricky.
No, you're all good. No, I mean, look, he had I think Bill was maybe gonna call it there, and I loved Bill as the head coach. I think the way he went about it and moved it on from 2013, I think that's when he picked it up from. I think his sort of tenure was unbelievable, great success for British swimming, and I think that opportunity arose, and I'd say Steve was probably a pretty good candidate, and with that, I think being a swimmer that he's coached for quite a while, I think he was maybe aware of let's make sure that Stirling's in a pretty good place afterwards. I think just fully trusting in everything that he's done and he had planned for the future, and now I get to see it from a slightly different perspective, which is quite fun.
Well, he's got a big act to follow, obviously, as you say, with the success that Bill Furness oversaw. But I'm sure he'll do a good job. Yeah, none whatsoever. Yeah. Well, we will see how he puts his mark on the team going through 2025. Obviously, there's a World Championships coming up in Singapore in the summer. That must be your main focus. But what are you hoping to achieve from 2025?
Yeah, definitely. So. So being pre-selected, I think, for the 2IM individually. I think the 4x2. You're telling me. It's how much I've read the selection policy. I think with that in mind, I think I'm really fortunate in the sense that I can just put straight focus onto Singapore, and as I already mentioned, I've had a slightly, well, I guess not extended break, but I just taken my break at a slightly different point in the season. So I've already done quite a lot of really good racing this season already, but just a lot earlier. So it does give me that time, which is really beneficial, and to go about and slowly build up to where I want to be. So all in on Worlds this year, which I'm really excited about as well. It gives me a good opportunity to get a good block of work in and taper and see how that goes with Ben, and we can sit down and be like, what went really well on this first sort of cycle together, and what adjustments can we make for next year as well.
I think that you have a quite a strong fan following in Asia from what I've seen. So are you going to have to get extra security for Singapore, or how's it going to work?
Yeah, I should have done it at the World Cups. The support I receive over in Asia is unbelievable. From In South Korea, it was pretty wild, and then the same every time I go across to Japan as well. And actually, there was a large following in Shanghai, so no, I'm always incredibly grateful for the support I receive. And they come out in their numbers and at trials as well, and some of the meets in Britain, some of the domestic meets. So thanks very much for all the support if they listen along to this podcast. But we'll see what happens in Singapore, I guess.
Well, we are all looking forward to seeing what happens in Singapore. Hopefully, some more success, another 4x2 race that we can hopefully get a good result in as well. No pressure. But Duncan, it's been great hearing your recollections on last year. Thank you ever so much for joining us and sharing those. We'll wish you all the best for 2025 and say thank you.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me, guys.
Okay, well, that was Duncan Scott telling us about his 2024. We're going to sign off for this episode now. If you want to get in contact, you can find me on social media at pullbuoy on X or at pullbuoy UK on Instagram, Facebook and Threads. pullbuoy.co.uk/contact if you want to send me an email. But until we are back with you, thanks for listening.
You've been listening to the Pullbuoy Podcast. For more episodes, visit www.pullbuoy.co.uk/podcast.